Hi guys and welcome back to Clubit. It's me Amy again, and this week you are in for a treat. We've decided to save the best till last, and this week's character is Daenerys Targaryen. Now I'd get comfortable as this video is going to be a long one, so let's waste no time and get right into it. In season 1 we see Daenerys alongside her brother Viserys. They are staying in the estate of Magister Illyrio Mopatis, who has arranged for a deal for her to marry Khal Drogo of the Dothraki. Her brother has traded her in return for 40,000 men against her will. After stopping her brother's advances, she steps in a bath who her servants tell her is too hot, however it doesn't affect her. After a short brief meeting with Drogo, he rides away on his horse. Illyrio assures Viserys if he didn't like her, Dany then would know about it. She learns that the throne means more to her brother than her. At her wedding she receives lots of gifts, including 3 dragon eggs. Sir Jorah Mormont brings books about Westeros and offers his service to Viserys. Drogo gifts her a horse. One of her handmaidens teaches her to speak the Dothraki language. Her brother is becoming jealous of her power. She spares his life after he is violent towards her. She learns of her pregnancy and predicts a boy. Daenerys and Jorah grow close. She makes her status known to her brother.
I am a Khaleesi of the Dothraki.
After placing one of the eggs in the fire, she is unharmed by the flames. She eats the raw heart of a stallion and names her unborn son Rhaegar in honour of her slain brother. Viserys is angry that she has won the love of the Dothraki. After trying to steal her dragon eggs, he arrives drunk at the feast, where he makes his own demands. He threatens Dany and her unborn child. Drogo has him executed by pouring molten gold over his head. With Viserys dead, Drogo does not feel the need to honour his bargain.
Throne.
After she is almost poisoned by Robert's orders, she is saved by Jorah. This changes Drogo's decision to take the throne. After attacking the lands of Laza, they seize loot and slaves. Dany disagrees with the way they treat the slaves, especially the women. She wins them better treatment. After one of Drogo's riders objects, he challenges Drogo to combat, where Drogo wins easily but sustains a chest wound. His wound grows much worse. When he comes close to death, Dany asks Dur to employ magic to save his life. She says how life pays for life. She begins chanting. A fight breaks out. Dany goes into labour and the child is stillborn. After saving Drogo's life, he is not the same. She ends his life. She constructs his prayer for his funeral and places her dragon eggs on it. She ties Dur to the pair in revenge. After her speech, she steps into the blaze. The following morning it shows she survived and 3 newly hatched dragons. Her army fall to their knees in front of their new queen. In season 2 we see Dany lead her people across the Red Waste, hoping to find shelter. Her dragons are refusing the raw meat she is trying to feed them. Her horse dies. She sends her last 3 horses in different directions as they are her only hope. One returns dead, another missing, and finally the last one arrives with an invitation to the great city of Qarth. After refusing to show her dragons, she is refused entry until one of the men vouches for her. Dany and her people are made guests. She receives an invite to the House of the Undying. Zyro shows Dany his fortune and offers to fund her return to Westeros in return for her hand in marriage. She refuses the offer after advice from Ser Jorah. After appealing for ships, she is refused due to her lack of army. When she returns to Zyro's home, she learns half of her men have been murdered and her dragons are missing. Pat Pre reveals he was responsible, and Zyro announces his intentions to seize control of the city. Dany flees, but Pat appeals to her that her children are in the House of the Undying. When she gets there, she is magically separated from Jorah. After entering doors which show her tempting visions, she finds her dragons chained in front of her. She is also now chained. After uttering Daenerys, all 3 of her dragons unleash their fiery breath and burn Patbury. After locking Zyro in his vault alongside her former handmaiden that betrayed her, she leaves with enough gold to buy a ship. Season 3 and Dany's dragons are now the size of small dogs. She hopes to gain the Unsullied army. She meets the owner of the Unsullied, Krasnys, his slave girl Missandei translating for them. He doesn't know that Dany knows Valyrian. He frequently insults her. He demonstrates the army in their lack of pain and sympathy. She is told that there are 8,000 men available to her. Dany meets Sir Barristan, who saves her life before introducing himself as a member of her father's Kingsguard. Dany wants 8,000 Unsullied, including those in training, which Krasnys refuses. He offers her 100 Unsullied. She offers him her biggest dragon for all the Unsullied. She dismisses Jorah and Selmy and accepts a transaction, also including Missandei. She is angry with Jorah and Selmy for criticising her decision in public. On the day of the exchange, they all meet to complete the deal. Krasnys gives her the golden whip. She hands in one of the chained dragons. She tests her men by ordering them in Valyrian. Everyone is shocked that she knows the language. After Krasnys is annoyed that Drogon is not obeying his orders, she says he is not a slave. Dany orders the Unsullied to kill the slave masters and free the slaves without hurting the innocent people. Before Krasny could stop her, she orders Drogon to burn him.
Dracarys.
She gives the option to the Unsullied to be free, but they stick with her. She marches forward with her new army. The Unsullied select a commander, Grey Worm, who chooses to keep the name he was given. She intends to free the slaves of Yunkai. They offer her gold and ships to leave the city alone. She asks for their slaves to be freed. The city say their powerful friends will destroy her. Dany earns an ally in Daria. She decides to attack the city of Yunkai. Within hours, she has captured the city and given the slaves the choice of freedom. Season 4 sees Dany's dragons growing bigger as she notices she can no longer be in control of them. After searching for Grey Worm and Daria, she finds them trying to decide who will ride next to her. She says neither of them will for keeping her waiting and they shall ride at the back. On the ride to Meereen, they notice child slaves nailed on crosses, 163 of them. Dany orders that they are all buried, but not before she looks at their faces. When they arrive at the gates, they send out a knight who challenges her to choose a champion to fight. She sends Daria. He quickly dispatches the Meereen champion, and Dany begins her siege on the city. She frees the slaves and the great masters look on in fear. She sends in the Unsullied to start a slave revolt inside the city. It is successful and they open the gates to Daenerys. She kills 163 great masters, similarly to how they killed the children she passed. She learns that Daria has taken 93 ships. She questions if that's enough to take her army to Westeros. However, Jorah reminds her that although she may be able to take King's Landing, she won't be able to hold all the 7 kingdoms. She learns the previous cities she has liberated have been overthrown and the masters have re-established slavery. They are plotting revenge against Daenerys. She listens to the requests of her new subjects. Daario makes his feelings known for Daenerys. As Daario leaves his queen's chambers in the morning, Jorah arrives. Dany hopes to give the wise masters a choice to live in her new world or die in their old one. Missandei speaks with Dany about Grey Worm, but insists it doesn't matter as the Unsullied don't desire women. Ser Barristan finds Jorah spying on Dany. She questions his actions and banishes him from the city for leaking information to the enemy.
It was poisoned.
I suspected.
You betrayed me. From the first.
Forgive me. Another man. Please, Khaleesi, forgive
You
me.
sold my secrets to the man who killed my father
I have
and stole
protected
my
you,
brother's throne.
fought for
You
you,
want me to
killed for
forgive you.
She learns that freeing all slaves may not have been the best option, as many were treated well and looked after by their masters, and given actual jobs such as teachers. Dany learns of Drogon burning a man's 3-year-old child. She is horrified and meets with Missandei and Grey Worm. After finally accepting she can no longer control her dragons, she takes her 2 remaining dragons, Regal and Viserion, Drogon has not been seen in 3 days, into the catacombs where she distracts them as she chains them up and leaves them. They are distressed and call out for her as she leaves. Season 5 kicks off with the murder of White Rat due to the removal of the golden harpy from the top of the Great Pyramid. Dany is furious and orders him to be buried with full honours. She hears reports of the situation in Yukon, where they want to reopen the fighting pits. She refuses to support this. Daario tries to change her mind and say that's where he earned his freedom. After Drogon has not been seen for 6 weeks, he tells her what is a dragon queen without no dragons. She visits her 2 other dragons, but upon hearing her voice they try to attack. She must flee. After debating the fate of the son of the Harpy, when left alone together he talks to Dany about her father, the Mad King. She promises not to have him executed without a fair trial. Mossador goes against Dany's orders and executes the man. She retaliates by executing him. She tells the crowd about freedom and justice and how they cannot exist without one another. She is escorted away by the Unsullied as riots break out. Back in her pyramid, she walks out onto her balcony and finds Drogon. She reaches out to him but he flies away. She is heartbroken. Barristan enters the room telling Dany all about her brother Rhaegar. Daario enters telling her that she is needed in the throne room. His dad is still trying to convince Dany to open the fighting pits, saying it's the only thing that will bring the city together. She learns of Ser Barristan's death at the hand of the Sons of the Harpy. She decides to round up the leaders of the noble families. She brings the 8 of them down to her dragons, where the Unsullied force them forward till one of them is burnt alive and torn apart. Dany speaks to Hizar in his cell, telling him of her mistake of refusing to open the fighting pits. She decides to wed herself to him, but makes it clear that she is the one in control. While in bed with Daario, she reassures him that the marriage is purely political to maintain peace. She appears at the fighting pits to watch the opening of the games. Although she is uncomfortable with the fighting, she is forced to stay. When the battle is over, the fighter reveals himself as Ser Jorah. She orders him to be taken away, however he offers her a gift, Tyrion Lannister. She banishes Jorah again. Dany and Tyrion have a chat. He suggests she stay with him in Meereen and build a new kingdom. She refuses but takes Tyrion on as an advisor. Dany and her close people sit in the royal box. She must clap to start the games. She notices Jorah in the array of fighters. He manages to be the last fighter standing. He hurls a spear into the royal box. They all reveal themselves and begin to slaughter everyone there, including Hazar. They escape the box but find themselves trapped in the pit. She closes her eyes, ready for death, as Drogon appears, burning those in sight and scaring off the sons. They attack him with spears, but Dany makes an effort to remove them. She climbs on his back and becomes the first Targaryen dragon rider in over a century. Drogon drops Dany away from Meereen on a grass hill. He is recovering from his wounds and has no interest in taking her back. Within minutes she is surrounded by the Dothraki. She removes her ring and drops it to the floor, leaving a trail as she is taken away. Now season 6, Dany is a prisoner of the Khalasar and is brought to their leader, Khal. Due to her different appearance and jealousy from the leader's wives, they suggest killing her. She tells him her identity, however he just laughs and says that she is now his bed slave. However, Dany tells him of her marriage to Khal Drogo. It is forbidden for a Khal to sleep with a widowed Khaleesi. She is sent to the temple of Dosh Khaleen, a home for widowed Khaleesi. Once Dany arrives, she is informed that she has violated the Dothraki law.
Sek, irgele shiti aspriveri halimai.
Dany becomes friends with a younger Khaleesi named Ornella. She has to escort Dany outside as she wants some air, and the pair are met by Ser Jorah and Dario, who have come to rescue her. In the temple, Dany tells the Khals that none of them are fit to lead the Dothraki before setting the temple on fire. The Khals try to escape, but the door is barred. As the fire grows bigger, the Dosh Khaleen and Khalasars gather and Dany emerges from the building, naked and unburnt. Many begin to bow to her, followed by the High Priestess and the rest of the Dosh Khaleen. Dany thanks Jorah for saving her, however is in a bit of a predicament as she has banished him twice and he still returns. On the road to Meereen, Dany declares that all the Khaladar are the Blood Riders instead of just a few. Dany returns to the city and is warned by Tyrion to not be like her father. Daenerys meets with the slave masters who discuss the terms of their surrender, announcing that they will let Dany and Tyrion leave the city and Missandei and the Unsullied will be sold back into slavery and a dragon slaughtered. Of course Dany disagrees with these terms, telling him that they are there for their own surrender, not hers. She mounts Drogon and then they burn the slave masters' ships. Grey Worm executes Rizdal and Bellicio and spares Yasan. They slaughter the Sons of Harpy, which ends the slave masters and their happy allies. Dany then meets with the Ironborn, who offered to provide 100 ships if Dany helps to defeat Yara's uncle Euron and recognise the independence of the Iron Island. Dany accepts her offer if the Ironborn end all pilgrimage on the mainland, which Yara agrees to. Dany informs Dario that he will stay behind while she heads to Westeros.
There's finally peace in Meereen. You will keep the peace while the people choose their own leaders.
She leads her army to Westeros and sails the Summer Sea with her dragons flying overhead. Season 7 and Dany arrives in Dragonstone for the first time since she was born. She grills Varys on his true loyalties, saying he only supported her when it suited him. Melisandre arrives and pardons for siding with Stannis due to Dany's involvement with the Red Priestess in Meereen. She learns of Jon Snow, king in the north, and how he unified the north and the wildlings. Tyrion says that he will prove a useful ally to her. Dany sends for the Unsullied to attack Casterly Rock rather than King's Landing. Jon and Ser Davos arrive in front of Dany. She asks Jon to bend the knee, which he refuses. He tries to inform her of the Night King and the damage his army will cause. Varys tells Dany of an attack on her fleet, including the Greyjoys, who have been taken captive by their uncle Euron, who is working for Cersei. Tyrion talks Dany into letting Jon mine for the Dragonglass as they have no use for it, and he will be a useful ally. Jon and Dany have a chat discussing their losses, but Jon still refuses to kneel. She learns of the Unsullied ships being burnt while they're taking Casterly Rock, and the Tyrell army being lost due to the forced suicide of Olenna. Missandei reveals to her queen that things happened between her and Grey Worm.
Many things. Many things.
Jon shows her the ancient drawings which makes her believe him about the White Walkers. Jon tells her using her dragons to burn down King's Landing makes her no better than her enemies. The Dothraki attack the armies of Jaime Lannister and Randall Tarly as they cross the plains, with Dany in charge on the back of the dragon. She leads the way for her army, burning a path for them to charge through. Dany heads for the Scorpion to destroy it. Bronn manages to shoot the dragon in the wing, making it wince in pain and lose his balance. While Dany is trying to remove the arrow, Jaime charges towards her. Drogon moves her out the way and shoots a line of fire at him, not before Bronn saves him by tackling him out the way. After the battle, the survivors are taken before Dany. She gives them a choice to bend the knee and join her or refuse and die. Randall Tarly and his son Dickon both refuse and Drogon burns them. Back at Dragonstone, Jon is watching as Dany lands on Drogon in front of him. He allows Jon to touch him, much to Dany's surprise. Jorah arrives clean of his greyscale. Dany hugs him and introduces him to Jon. Dany refuses to help Jon protect his family from the White Walkers if he doesn't bend the knee. Tyrion suggests that they show Cersei a white in the flesh to help persuade
I thought
her.
that was what we were trying to avoid.
We don't have to bring the whole army. Only one soldier.
She receives a raven from Gendry and rushes to help Jon on his mission. When she arrives to help them in battle, the Night King impales Viserion with an ice spear, killing him. Jon shouts for Dany and her other dragons to leave so they don't get hurt. When Jon arrives back at Eastwatch, she sees his stab wounds for the first time as they remove his frozen clothes. Jon apologises for the death of her dragon, but Dany says this gives her more drive to kill the Night King. Jon calls her my queen. Jon assures her that the Northerners will like her and she leaves him to rest. They all arrive at the dragon pit. Dany arrives on the back of Drogon. After getting nowhere with warning Cersei of the threat, they let the White free and it runs straight for her. Euron suggests that the Iron Fleet return to the Iron Isles. He suggests Dany do the same and come and find him when they are the only two left alive. After Jon says he does not serve two queens, Cersei storms out refusing to help, and she will fight the winner of that battle. Dany and Tyrion tell Jon that learning to lie a little might help him, which he refuses. Jon asks Dany about her infertility. She says how she never got an informed opinion from anyone, just Mirin Maz-Dur herself. The Lannisters return and Cersei says her army will march north and fight alongside them. They all suggest tactics. Jorah says Dany should stay in Winterfell to be safe, but she insists on sailing north with Jon. On the sail, Jon enters Dany's cabin and shuts the door. Unknown to them, Tyrion sees this. On to season 8, Dany and her army alongside with Jon arrive in the north. The people of the north looked wary of Dany and her army, but she is there to help. Drogon and Rhaegal fly overhead, which startles the Northerners. Once in Winterfell's courtyard, she is introduced to Sansa. It is a little tense to say the least. After this, Dany is seated in the Great Hall, and Tyrion tries to calm down the hostile Northerners by telling them that this is their biggest army assembled. Dany asks Jon about Sansa's dislike towards her, and he tells her that she wasn't overly keen on him when growing up. Dany is approached by a couple of Dothraki who tell her that the dragons aren't really eating. Her and Jon go and see the dragons. She gets on Drogo, telling Jon to get on Rhaegal, and the two go on a ride together. The two land near a waterfall and exchange a kiss. Dany and Jorah come across Sam, who she thanks for getting rid of Jorah's greyscale, and asks if there's any way she can repay him. She then hears his surname and realises that she killed his father and brother, which she difficultly breaks the news to him. Jaime arrives into Winterfell and is scrutinised by both Dany and Sansa, who question his loyalty. Brienne then vouches for him and Sansa trusts her, and Dany allows his sword to be returned to him. Dany then has a talk with Sansa where she admits her love for her brother, telling her that she has only had one goal to take back the Iron Throne, but is now helping the North to fight the Night King. Sansa is still reluctant to trust her and asks of her plans for the North. After this, Dany then meets with the commander and head of the houses to discuss their plans of action. Jon finally admits the truth to Dany, that she is in fact his auntie and he is Aegon Targaryen.
It's Aegon Targaryen.
Jon assures her that it is true, and she realises that Jon has a better claim to the throne than her. The army of the dead arrive. Jon and Dany watch from afar as the battle begins. However, their vision is cut off as the White Walkers cause a blizzard. She and Drogon are suddenly attacked by the Night King of Viserion. She tries to burn him, but it doesn't faze him. They escape as he hurls an ice spear at Drogon. She saves Jon by burning the Whites and creating him a path to Winterfell. He climbs onto Drogon. She falls off as he flies away. She is protected by Jorah, who dies while doing so, leaving her hysterical. After the battle, she is mourning the deaths and lights up the prayer. She kisses dead Jorah's head. They celebrate the win with a feast. Tormund makes a toast to the Dragon Queen. She finds her mood quickly change when she is jealous over Jon's popularity. While in the chambers with Jon, she wishes she never knew of Jon's true identity, as she is afraid people will take her crown and give it to Jon. She begs him not to tell anyone, but he says he must tell his sisters. As they are sailing back to Dragonstone, Dany is on Drogon with Rhaegal right beside her. Suddenly he is shot by 3 bolts and falls in the sea, dead. The Iron Fleet reveal themselves. They take down Dany's ships and take Missandei in the process. When arriving at King's Landing, they stand outside the gates, bargaining with Cersei. She orders the Mountain to behead Missandei. Back in Dragonstone, Dany refuses to eat while she is mourning the death of her friends. She is becoming paranoid that she is losing the claim to the throne. She learns through Tyrion that Varys is plotting against her, planning to betray her and crown Jon in her place, due to his belief that Dany will succumb to the madness due to her personal losses. She sentences him to die. Dany reminds Jon of the warning she gave him about telling Sansa the truth, saying Sansa is just as responsible for Varys' death as she is. Jon attempts to reassure Dany that he does not want the crown. Tyrion tries to talk Dany out of attacking King's Landing, as the citizens of the city are not her enemy and are innocent. Tyrion says about the bells ringing as a surrender of Cersei and her army. This means Dany will stop the attack. She agrees. She attacks the Iron Fleet, sinking them and destroying all the army's scorpions to ensure they don't attack Drogon. She destroys the gates, killing all those guarding it. Dany's army charge in. Overwhelmed, the Lannister army surrenders without Cersei's order. Dany ignores this and carries on a rampage and burns down the whole city along with everyone in it. She stands over the carnage and is cheered on by the Dothraki and Unsullied. When the battle has finished, she has all surviving soldiers executed. She delivers a speech saying that she will continue to liberate the world and break the wheel. After Tyrion tells her that she slaughtered a city, she has him arrested. She is joined by Jon in the throne room. She justifies her actions and refuses to forgive Tyrion. They both try and decide on what is good. As they share their final embrace, Jon tells her that she is his queen and always will be. He thrusts a dagger in her heart and weeps over her dying body. Drogon arrives and tries to wake his mother. As Jon prepares for his flames, he takes Dany in his claw and flies off with her body, never to be seen again. Well, that's it, the full story of Daenerys Targaryen. We've watched her blossom throughout the series and we're definitely shocked by her death. She led her people to victory, but her fate was sealed by her family before her. The Mad King became the Mad Queen. We hope you enjoyed these Game of Thrones videos as much as we've enjoyed making them. Let us know if there are any other series you would like videos on in the future. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.